Hi friends, we're going to be using what we call factor diamonds. I guess these are X's, but if we connected the sides, we would have a diamond here to do factoring when something is in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. Now the a, the b, and the c are all going to be numbers, so keep that in mind. In general, on the top we have a times c, and on the bottom we have b. And we want to do two numbers that multiply to the top. So multiply to a times c and add to the bottom. So on this video, I'm just going to show you the 4 different types of situations we would have. The first situation is when they're all positive. So A, B, and C are all positive, which means your top number is going to be positive and your bottom number is going to be positive. In this case, the 2 numbers that you choose are both going to be positive. So an example of this would be x squared plus 5x plus 6. So in this case, A is 1 because there's nothing in front of the x squared. B is 5, and C is 6. So I need 2 numbers that are going to multiply. In this case, A times C is 6, that are going to multiply to 6 and add to 5. I know that both of these numbers are going to be positive because my top and bottom are both positive. And in this case, it's positive 3 and positive 2. Our next situation is when A and C are positive, but B is negative. In that case, the top is going to be positive, but the bottom's going to be negative. In order to multiply to a positive number, we either need 2 positives, like we did in our first situation here, or 2 negatives. So in this case, the 2 side numbers are going to be negative. An example of this would be like x squared, we'll use the same one, minus 5x plus 6. So in this case, A is 1, B is negative 5, C is 6. So A times C is 6. So we'll have a positive 6 on the top, but a negative 5 on the bottom, which means both answers are going to be negative. But again, I just want to think of 2 numbers that are going to multiply to 6 and then add to 5. We can ignore the negatives because we've already said that the 2 sides are negative. So again, it'll be negative 2 and negative 3. Negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. Negative 2 plus negative 3 is negative 5. Notice the difference between the first 2 situations here. The first situation, B was a positive 5. So we needed positive 2 and positive 3, where the second situation, B was a negative 5. The next situation we have is where A and B are both positive, but C is negative, which means the top is going to end up being negative. The bottom's going to be positive. Remember that we're multiplying to a negative number here, which means one number has to be positive, one number has to be negative, and in this case, the positive number is going to be the bigger number. That's going to be our bigger number. And in this case, we want to subtract to the bottom. So 2 numbers that multiply to give us the top, but subtract to give us the bottom. For an example, x squared plus 3x minus 4. So in this case, A is 1, B is 3, C is negative 4, which means A times C is negative 4. So if I were to do this one, I would have negative 4 on top, positive 3 on the bottom. So we need a positive number and a negative number. Again, I'm going to circle the positive so I know that that's going to be my bigger of the two factors. So if I look at factors of 4, I can do 4 times 1 or 2 times 2, and they have to subtract to give me 3. 4 minus 1 is 3, so those are my two factors, but I know that the bigger number has to be positive, so positive 4 and negative 1. And then our last example here is where both numbers are negative, where B and C are both negative. So the top is going to be negative, and the bottom's going to be negative. Again, the sides are going to be positive and negative, but in this case, the negative is going to be the bigger number. That's how I can add to a negative number. Let's look at an example. X squared minus 2x minus 15. So in this case, my A is 1, my B is negative 2, my C is negative 15. So A times C is negative 15. And if I make my X here, I have negative 15 on top, negative 2 on the bottom. Again, I know I have a positive and a negative. I'm going to circle the negative because that has to be my bigger number. Now I want to look at factors of 15 that subtract to give me 2. So I can do 1 and 15. Well, those don't subtract to give me 2. 3 and 5. If I subtract those, 5 minus 3 equals 2, or 3 minus 5 equals negative 2. So this has to be my factors, and the bigger number is negative. So negative 5 and positive 3. Make sure that on your notes, you don't have to have the examples, but you want to make sure that you have all of these X's somewhere on your notes. Everything that I wrote down for those. All right, so again, everything that's highlighted, you want to make sure you have on your notes.